Hello, I'm gonna be talking about the number one thing you can start to do to help your distracted child become more independent, i.e., be able to do the things independently without you having to sit next to him or her to eyeball your child. This thing is having a routine, but it's not just any routine that works. There are a few things you need to pay attention to, and I'm going to tell you about it more and why we have to incorporate these things into our routine to make it work for our distracted child. Hi, I'm Abigail and I'm a parent coach. I run a membership that helps parents with distracted kids help their children improve focus and motivation for the child so that the child can independently cope with school and life demands. So coming back to the thing that we can do for our distracted child, the very first thing in fact, is to have a very explicit schedule or routine written out in a physical format, because this is something that our child can refer to again and again, and this helps him to become more independent in managing his own schedule for the day. In speaking with many parents, I've realized that, hey, a lot of the moms say, oh yes, I have a schedule, but it's all in my head. And then when I ask them, okay, is it written out? Is it put up on a board so that their child knows exactly what's going on for every day? And they say, no, but we follow the same thing every day and the child should know by now after following the same routine for so many years. That is my cue to come in and say, we know the schedule really well because it's all in our head and we planned it out, but our child doesn't. So I would highly encourage you to write out item by item what your routine for the day is and what you would like your child to accomplish at various points in the day. Probably in the afternoon when he comes back from school, right? Or at night, or in the morning before he goes to school. Whatever it is, pick a time slot and write out all the specific items that you would like your child to do in very, very specific terms so that everybody is clear on what you expect him to do. At this point, I would highly encourage you to go back to your child and ask for his or her input. We have to explain the relevance of each activity to increase their buy-in. Okay, that's the number one point that I want to talk about when you're talking about your routine. To explain the relevance of how each activity helps your child progress towards a bigger goal. You know you need to do your homework. Why do you need to do your homework? So that you finish the day's work, you do the revision for that day, and then you hand the homework back to the teacher. And after you do your homework, you pack it neatly into your file so you know exactly where to find it so that the next day you will not scramble. You'll be able to find your things and hand up to the teacher and you will not get into trouble. You'd think this is like common knowledge to our kids, but hey, it's always good to have that reminder and have that conversation with them again. Okay, after all, we want our kids to be taking ownership of their schedules and we want them to realize like everything that mommy is putting in here, she has a good reason for that. I may not like it, but I agree with what she's saying. I agree that yes, homework needs to be done in a timely manner, otherwise it will just snowball and accumulate. We also want to go into this conversation in a consultative manner, not in a I'm going in to convince you and persuade you that you have to do things my way, but I'm here to ask you of your opinion. Hey, do you think this is too much? Do you think you have time to practice your violin every day? How about on the days where you have CCAs? Or how about the days where you come back later? Do you think you want to maybe skip the violin practice for this day and then we have a longer practice time on another day that you're free? So when we have these conversations with our kids will realize that, hey, mommy values my input, mommy is hearing me out, and it's a safe place for me to say, it's too much work, I feel very overwhelmed, I don't want to do this on this day, can we swap it to another day? We're really modeling problem solving and negotiation, right? Like our kids can tell us what they feel and let's listen to them, listen to their concerns, even though it sounds ridiculous sometimes. Like a lot of our kids are worried that they don't have enough time to play if they do all these work. And that's our job to assure them that no, it's just 1 or 2 pages. If we finish it and you can finish it in half an hour, you'll have all this time to play. Look, I've blocked out this time for you to play. Is 2 hours enough? We can have more play time, but that means you'll have to do your work faster over here. Is that okay? That's where we have to stick to our promise and not fill up the time just because we are uncomfortable seeing our child like finish the work early, finish the work fast, and they have so much time to play, so much free, unstructured time that we are antsy and then we try to squeeze in more and more activities or work into the unstructured time. Then the child is able to trust us when we say like, hey, this is your schedule, is this okay? Let's stick to it. Of course, it doesn't mean that there's no room for change. Like if we think the child is really having way too much unstructured time, we can always come back to this process of consulting with them again and say, hey, I think we need to add in one more activity here because of XXX reasons. What do you think of that? And the tasks that we include, make sure that at least 80 to 90% are things that they can already do independently on their own, and it's simple enough for them to do. We can even start off with easy tasks. For example, 1 or 2 pages of multiple choice worksheets. There's an answer key behind. They can always go back and refer to the book. We want to help our child build confidence that 90% of the things that are on that schedule are things that they can do on their own. They are good at it. They don't need an adult to eyeball or monitor them in order for them to do it well. And if they make a mistake, no problem. They have something to fall back on. They can always refer back and then do corrections on their own. And there is no stigma to making a mistake. And that's how we help our child build confidence and independence in their own ability to do the task on their own. And what about the remaining 10%? We have to avail ourselves and make sure that, okay, we know that this is that one thing my child cannot do. For example, he has trouble writing a composition, or he has trouble learning spelling on his own. So I will know I have to avail myself to be there to help him at least get started. And we also can communicate really clearly, give him a way out. If he really has tried and he still cannot do, then you can always say like, hey, why don't you try it on your own? All right, I'll come back at 4:30 to help you if you really can't. But if you can, you'll be done by 4:30 and then you can go off and play. Speaking about playtime and free time, this brings me to point number 2, which is to schedule in the dopamine kicks. What do I mean by that? Bring out and schedule in those rewards and rewarding activities that you know your child loves to do. So I used to think that, oh no, I'm not going to use rewards, because I don't like dangling bribes or extrinsic motivation. And I think every child should do tasks because it's good for them and because they love to do it or they see the point in doing it. Unfortunately for our distracted kids, and maybe for some of our younger kids as well, or for our kids who are not very disciplined or self-motivated yet, they can't see those intrinsic rewards. Like if you ask them to study hard now, if not, you will not find a job later on, right? So those kind of talks does not work for our kids. They don't see the point of it. They don't see the relevance of doing all these study tasks because it's irrelevant to them. Why do they have to learn things here? Why do they have to learn spelling words? When they have the computer, then they can type it in, they will do autocorrect for them. Or why do they have to practice their math when the exam is still so far away? So for a lot of our distracted kids, their mind is operating in the now, and whatever is not now is not relevant. So really, there is no point for us harping on the, hey, in 20 years time, you may not get a good job, you may not earn enough money, you may not do this and that if you don't study hard now. So scrap all of those talk and just tell your child, hey, I know you need a break here. How about let's schedule in a snack break here? How about here? Let's have a movement break here. I know you love to scoot or skateboard. How about you go downstairs and go around for 15 minutes and then come back up and we'll do something else later. So for the biggest reward for my child at the end of the day is screen time for him because he can go online, he can meet some of his friends, they can play games together. So what I tell him is you have to finish everything by 5 p.m. You can go online and play with your friends. So that is a big motivator for him. He will try to motivate himself to finish the work. I'm not saying that he's super motivated. At 2 o'clock he comes back from school, he straight away does his work. Sometimes he does that, but quite rare. So by observing what your child is like, after school, he needs a downtime. He will usually go play with his toys, fiddle with his fidget cubes and all that until about 3 something when we start reminding him. Then he will slowly, sloth-like manner, go and take his things out from his bag, unpack his stuff, and then he's still in a dilly-dallying mood until about 4 o'clock where he realizes that, oh, I have to finish everything by 5 o'clock, and then he starts getting his engine moving. I used to be so upset at all the time that's being wasted in the afternoon because if he could have revved up his engine at 2 o'clock, then that means we have another good block of 2 hours to do more stuff. But I realized that it was just pushing against a wall. And he wouldn't move, and it would just make all of us so upset and angry that we would just end up fighting the entire afternoon. So now I've come to accept that he needs that time to unwind, he needs that time to decompress. And if he is able to finish all the work I assign him in 1 hour, 1.5 hours, then who am I to judge and say hey, you're wasting your time? And there are some days where he doesn't finish his work by 5 p.m. And at first he would cry. and be upset, but the boundaries are clear and he knows that I'm not going to budge and give in to him. And so nowadays, he knows if he chooses not to finish the work by 5, he just gets less screen time. Like yesterday, both of my older kids were playing and not getting down to work, and the clock went past 5, but they were okay with it. So they quickly finished the work and there wasn't any drama. They said, okay, I finished my work, can I go and play now? Yes, you may. It was like 5:30ish, almost 6. So they knew and they made a conscious choice that they would have less screen time that day because they just couldn't finish the work by then. And it isn't that they don't have enough time. They had the time, but they chose to make popsicles. They chose to create his own game. They chose to do something else instead of doing the assigned worksheets, which is fine. Point number 3 is to make the abstract concrete and visible. What do I mean by that? Our distracted kids have poorer executive functioning skills. And what we often think of as lazy or ill-disciplined is actually an inability to visualize the end result or to visualize an outcome. What is it like to finish my work fast so that I can play it on the computer? What is it like to do my work without being distracted so that mom won't yell at me and scold me? What is it like to be able to start working, or what is it like to visualize the end of my compo so that I can start writing the introduction? Our distracted kids are still lacking in this department, which means that if they cannot visualize the end, they cannot visualize the start. So what this means for us is that let's try to concretize as many things as possible. And one of these things is to snap pictures of your child doing the activity. So you snap pictures, you print them out, put them into your routine so that your child is able to see, hey, I'm doing my work. Hey, I am writing. Hey, I am skateboarding. Hey, I am taking my clothes, going to bathe. So when we concretize as many of these actions, especially the first few actions of each step, that will help them realize that, oh, okay, this is how I can start. I pick up my pencil, I do a planning for my composition. Or I go to the room, I pick my clothes and I'm going to bathe. Or I'm going to eat, so I need to go and get my plate. So as many pictures as we can, as much as we can help them concretize all these mental steps that are unseen, hopefully your child is able to have these visual reminders and help him kickstart his routine a lot easier. So these are my 3 tips for today for making the routine work for your child. First of all, have a routine. And point number 1 is to explain the relevance of each activity to your child to get his buy-in. Number 2 is to put in the dopamine kicks and so schedule in the rewards so your child knows that he has certain breaks to look forward to. Number 3 is to make the abstract concrete so that your child is able to visualize the starting steps as well as the intermediate steps leading to the final outcome. So if you want to learn more about how to effectively engage and coach your distracted child to focus, be self-motivated so that he can finish his tasks independently without you yelling, bribing, or micromanaging them, come join us in the membership. And I'll see you soon. Bye.